Here at courtside of the Duckworth Center, this week on Tips on Technique, we're going to look at the correct way to run, and we call it proper running mechanics. A lot of times in the sport of basketball, we tell people to run from one end of the court to the other, but we really don't teach them how to run correctly. Let's look at the proper running techniques with 4 members of our team. Working with us today, Prentice Lenz, Kevin Chief, Thor Olsen, and Kirby Shep. Now, running properly involves 3 separate mechanics. First of all, proper arm position. So let's have the 4 guys on the floor here and look at a simple drill that helps us develop proper arm mechanics. The arms are used just like a swimmer would use his arms. And we want knuckles bent, we want the hands coming up to eye height, and we want to maintain a 90-degree angle in the arms. So we look for some basic components, some correct running mechanics using the arms. Again, it's coming up to eye height. We have a proper 90-degree angle, and they're dropping their hand down so that their knuckle hits the floor. Now we can change this and ask them to sprint. So let's sprint with that same technique and see if they can maintain proper arm technique to improve their running mechanics. Great. So that's point number 1. Now, standing up, let's have a look at point number 2. All right, working in pairs, we're going to do a thing called acceleration, drop and acceleration. So we're going to ask we'll ask Thor and Prentice to drop into Kevin and Kirby's hands. A straight drop. Let's do it again. Let's have a look at it. A straight drop. And this illustrates point number 2, if we hold that position right there, where we want our head over our knees. Correct running technique involves having the head over the knees. And that's extremely important. So let's look at that drop again. And as we would start to run, we drop the same way. We start by running by dropping our head. And the third point now involves a straight line that we want in the back of our legs. From Thor's hip, knee, and ankle. They should be in a straight line. And so we can check his running mechanics by having a look at that straight line and whether or not it is actually straight from the hip, through the knee, down to the ankle. So let's drop and now hold them and run against the pressure that's applied by Kirby and Kevin, and let them go at about 5 seconds, and we'll sprint to the half court. Good. All right, let's do it at the half court. Switch it up, coming back. Again, drop, a little resistance running, looking for good technique. Let's see if their arms are correct, and then they let them go and run it through. Let's have another look at it at this end here, reviewing the 3 techniques of running correctly, the 3 principles of correct running. First of all, proper arms at 90 degree. They're coming up to eye height, and they're dropping in behind, so we keep that angle all the way. Secondly, our head is over our knees. And thirdly, we have that straight line with our back leg. Here we go. Little resistance and let them go. Now, staying at the half, what we want to do is we want to now take this basic style and improve our mechanics. Let's ask them to do certain things with their running, and if they can control their body and deal with the movement skills that are involved, they're going to be a whole lot faster as they go down the floor. Let's start with a simple skip. Notice as they skip here, they use their arms correctly. They're able to control their weight, and they're getting coordination between the opposite hand and the opposite knee. All right, secondly, we'll cross our legs over. Let's cross over in front of us. Cross over. That's right. They're stepping across, controlling their weight. Good balance. They're learning to use their arms correctly. All right, thirdly, let's come back by changing direction. Plant the outside foot. All right, coordinate the arms. That's right. The arms may come in front of you a little bit. And we would do this full court, there and back. Each one of these is a separate set. All right, thirdly, let's skip for height. Slowing it right down. Slowing it right down. Use those arms correctly. Coordinating the arms and the legs. Coming back, let's have another look at that one. Skipping for height. Let's see if we can get some improvement. And we slow it right down. We get up off the ground. Excellent. All right, a high knee crossover. This is a little difficult. This is something new we've added in the last couple of years. Let's go with a high knee crossover. Get them up nice and high. High, high. Get them up high. Step across, step across. Notice how the foot steps in front of the other foot. Coming back, let's have another look at that one. From the front. Great. And the fifth one, now we're going to sprint backwards. And a key here is that they do keep their head over their knees so they don't fall backwards. Sprint backwards. Here we go. Proper arms, keep the head forward. Coming back, sprint backwards again. Use those arms. And the last set involves running backwards now and reaching as far back as we can. That's right, reaching way back. Now the head has to come forward. This is a lot more difficult to do than it really looks. Let's have another look at that one. But a great developer of learning to control your body. Great, guys. Thanks a lot. Now, those are some basic things that we do to improve running mechanics. Not only looking at the three principles of arms and head and that straight line position of your leg, but now challenging them with different techniques of being able to move down the floor. If they can handle those 6, they're going to be a whole lot faster when they have to go end line to end line in a fast break. Here again at courtside of the Duckworth Center for this week's Tips on Technique. What we want to look at is coordination. Coordinating the hand and the feet. That's a big task for some of the bigger players that play the game. We've got some of our big players working with us today. Also working with us, Chris Webber, Murray Davidson, Robert Penner, and Steiner Kramer. And this is one of those challenges I think a lot of younger coaches working with younger players have in front of them, is trying to coordinate the feet and the hand of some of your bigger players. They don't necessarily develop that fine motor control until maybe they hit 18 and 19. But there's a lot of things that you can do to improve the coordination of all of your players. Let's first of all look at one of the simplest ones, and that's skipping a rope. Let's work with these 4 guys and get them into skipping a rope. Not only are they going to skip a rope to improve hand-foot coordination, this is great in terms of plyometrics to improve vertical jump. A lot of coaches ask, how can I improve the vertical jump of our players? Rope skipping is one of the best. But let's change the skipping now and look at a different routine. What we have is a straight skip. Let's just go with a straight skip. All right, then we'll go left foot only. Left foot only. And we'll change that to right foot only. And then we'll change it to skis. And we make it more difficult as they go along. Most of these guys had a lot of trouble with this when they started working with us, and I'm really proud to say there's a whole lot of improvement. All right, we got crossovers. Interesting, I don't think young women would have as much problem as young men doing this, because oftentimes in our society, girls are encouraged to skip. I'm leaving you with the idea that maybe everybody should be skipping. All right, running. Get those knees up high. That's right. They're going to make the odd mistake, but hey, that rope will keep going. They got to push themselves to get better every time. And let's finish with some doubles. This time the rope is going to go twice. If you get one of these, you're probably doing quite well. Great. So there's one example of improving coordination, also improving vertical jump. It's a great aerobic exercise too, and improves conditioning of your players. Now let's work on coordination in another aspect. Put the ropes down, men, and let's work simple thing in front of us. Let's go with what we call a 5 of diamonds. On the floor in front of each one of them is the 5 of diamonds playing card. And I'm going to ask them to put their feet on the bottom 2 diamonds. And now they're going to step with 1 foot on the middle and 2 feet on the top, and then reverse it back. So let's start, work it. 5 of diamonds. Watch the feet. You can see how they pick up the routine, and they're moving it. And we want them to go quicker and quicker and quicker. A great exercise, especially for bigger men who may have a little bit of trouble making those feet move. Will help them a lot in playing better defense. The 5 of diamonds. Okay, let's stop, and let's move now to jump the box. In front of them they have a box with 4 corners on it, A, B, C, D. So let's jump that routine right there, from A to B to C to D. Let's go, A, B, C, D, in a box. So they're jumping in a box from the letters A, B, C, D, and I can change that now, and let's go C, D, B, A. C, D, B, A. And the pattern of their jumps change again. And we'll go again. Let's go ADCB. ADCB. Again, we're getting good jumping. This is improving their ability to explode off the floor, and it's also an aerobic conditioner. And they've got to spend a lot of time thinking about where they're going to move those feet. All right, hold it there. That's good. All right, let's change it now and do a little foot fire. This is a great conditioner. Most of these should be done for 30 seconds, spurts, then with a 30-second rest. But obviously, we are working now to be able to put this together for our tips on technique. A little foot fire. Let's find a little spot, and let's go hard on that spot. Let's work it with our hands up, too. Great exercise for big men. Working to move their feet, working to improve their aerobic capacity, working to improve their coordination. All right, that's great. Now, there's a lot of different things that you could work on to improve them. A lot of those are things we do early in the practices. They're not only good conditioners, but they're improving the ability of all of our athletes to move their feet. Coordination is a very important part of being physically prepared to play the game. And using simple things like this, you can get your team better prepared to play the games that are going to come later on in the season. This week on Tips on Technique at the Duckworth Center, we're going to look at another aspect of physical preparation, that being improving the strength of your players. A lot of coaches spend a lot of time working on improving the skills of playing basketball, and really sometimes there's not enough time to improve the strength of your basketball players. Let's look at some shortcuts that you can use to not only work on proper skills and techniques, but also improve the strength of your players. Working with us today, Kevin Chief, Steve Newton, Steiner Kramer, and Pat Sherlock. And we're going to use some of the basic skill techniques associated with balls, and in this case we're going to use a medicine ball. And so we'll look first of all at a simple set of drills where we are simulating basketball skill techniques, but we're using the extra weight of a medicine ball. So let's start very simply by passing the ball with good technique back and forth to each other. Here we concentrate on proper technique to be able to pass the ball, good little wrist, catch and control, except we're using the extra weight of a medicine ball. Working on the skill of passing and catching, working on increasing strength because of the extra weight of the medicine ball. All right, let's take that one step further and now work on a combo drill. Let's take Kevin and Pat and go with a circle. Here we go with the same medicine ball, and Kevin is going to circle around the outside, working with the same thing. Now we have Kevin working, increasing his strength, working on his defensive footwork, and they're also working by passing the medicine ball back and forth to each other. Let's take it one step further and have Kevin put an elastic band on his ankles. Now we're going to increase the strength of his legs. There's resistance from the elastic band, and we do the same thing. Here we go in a circle. Again, working for good defensive footwork. He keeps his feet shoulder width apart. He's working on moving his feet, pointing the toe the way he's going, and he works on his passing and catching skills. This is best done in 30 seconds, and then we give him a 30-second rest. Good. Now the core area, the stomach area, is one of the most important areas to strengthen because there's so much movement in basketball. A lot of pressure put in this area here. Many of the taller basketball players have problems with their lower back. Let's look at some exercises using the medicine ball to help protect that lower back area. We'll go back to back with a half twist, and we'll use all 4 of them in this. And again, we would like to go for 30 seconds and then give them a 30-second rest. Here we go. Let's have a look at it. And they'll work at twisting, keeping their feet still, moving the extra weight of that medicine ball back and forth, coordinating their movements. Again, a 30 seconds. Good, that's fine there. Let's go with a full twist now. We'll alternate. They'll step a little farther apart, and we'll get the thing going. Here we go with a full twist. Working on their hand strength, working with the ball. This is a basketball type object. This is basketball where we use a ball, so all of the strength exercises are not necessarily using a barbell or a dumbbell or a machine, but using a ball. Great. Now let's look at some things we can do to increase the strength of the legs. Let's take Steve and Steiner and have Steve laying down on the floor, and he'll do a couple of hamstring curls for us. Laying down face down, and we'll get Steiner to roll the ball along his back, and we'll get Steve to do a hamstring curl with the extra weight on the back of his legs. Here we go. A good exercise for increasing strength, really convenient, because here we've taken and brought a hamstring curl to the basketball court. Like to do this at the end of practices when they're really warm, really stretched out. Get a good number of hamstring curls here, working on increasing Steve's leg strength. Great. Now we'll take Steiner and take him over to the glass board here, and we're going to ask him to go through a 30-second rep of jumping and banging the medicine ball on the floor, simulating really tough rebounding. Here we go. He works repetitive jumps, working with that extra weight. This will make him a more explosive rebounder. And he'll work for 30 seconds. And that's good. He'll rest from there. Now we go back and take a regular basketball and just work on maybe a two-ball passing here. And we'll see how different they'll feel, these basketballs. Now the lighter weight should be really easy to handle. Let's just go with two-ball passing here between Steiner and Steve. And just get her going. Here we go. Now there should be a tremendous difference in the weight of the ball. And even to make it more of a challenge, we have what we call a big ball. So let's get Kevin and Pat working with a ball that weighs exactly the same as a basketball, but is a much larger surface. Weighs exactly the same, but it's about at least 50% bigger. And they have to concentrate very much so on being able to handle this ball. And when they go back to a regular basketball, it's a whole lot different. So really the key in the whole section here is looking at bringing weight room facilities up here to the basketball court, adding a little variety, a little difference, making things just a little more exciting in practice. The key element, though, is that we're not only working on skills and techniques, we're also increasing strength. And in a short time period where you have to get your team ready, this can be really a helpful hint. Today on Tips on Technique at the Duckworth Center, let's look at individual defense, and we'll talk a little bit about the proper stance, the correct balance, and some of the footwork that's necessary to play great defense. Working with us today is Pat Sherlock, one of our best defensive players, and Kirby Shep. Let's first of all take Pat and talk a little bit about a correct balanced stance of how you play the game correctly. Let's get him down. We'll notice that his knees are bent. That's a key right there. His feet are approximately shoulder width apart. And in many cases, you will run a staggered stance. Let's look the difference. Where he is right now, let's bring that foot right up there, Pat. We'll call this a parallel stance. The feet are parallel. Defensively, very few times are you in a parallel stance. Drop the foot back, he's in a staggered stance. So now we have a good staggered stance. Our feet are approximately shoulder width apart. Our knees are bent. Our hands are up. And here is the key element in good balance. His head is in the middle of his stance. As some coaches say, if we were to go whoop and cut it right off, it would drop right there. And to control your balance, you must keep your head in the middle of your stance. The head is a large object. It controls a lot of the weight. And as soon as it gets too far forward, your balance is forward. As soon as it gets too far back, you drop back and lose balance that way. So in order to move efficiently defensively, he has to have a good balanced stance. And he works with his hands in this position here. All right, now the footwork that's necessary to work, and we'll get Kirby coming in here now, and let's do a little bit of back and forth, again, facing me right here, and I'll just get and point some positions, and we're going to move defensively. All right, so we'll get them about 2 steps each way. That way, and coming back, and this way. All right, and back, and let's stop and have a look at that. Now what we like to see is that if Pat is moving this way to his right, his toe is pointed the way he's going to go. His lead hand is up to take away any kind of penetrating pass, and his trail hand is down so that if the dribbler comes back with a crossover or change of behind the back dribble, that there's an opportunity for him to possibly steal the ball. So let's look at that again. We'll see if their feet stay shoulder width apart, they point the toe the way it's going, and change their hand position with their head remaining in the middle of their stance. All right, there we go. Coming back. Good. Coming back. Great. Coming back. Good. Now we're going to go forward and back with an advance and a retreat step and use the same technique. A key in all of these, as we look at Kirby here, is that the power, get into a good stance, right? If we're going to that side there, the power should come off of this leg. That it's not a step with that leg and drag this one behind. It's a power step using the back leg as the power step. So now as we change to an advance and a retreat step, the power, if we're going backwards, coming off the front foot, coming to the front, it's coming off the back foot. So let's get our hands and advance with a hand up and retreat the same way. Back and forward. And back and forward. Now we get good power off the front foot, pushing, and we get power off the back foot, pushing forward. All right, let's mix it up now and see what happens. All right, under directions, here we go. Reacting to visual signals, very important. It makes them keep their head up. They change their hand position. That's great. Now let's even take it one step farther. We get an elastic band, and we'll work with Pat with the elastic band, and we'll get Kirby as a dribbler. All right, and we'll take this one step further and get Pat to work on what we call a swing step. And we'll just set an area here approximately about 10 foot wide, and we'll go with a little zigzag to about maybe 3/4 court, and we switch. And now we're working the same kind of stance. The head is in the middle of our stance, lead hand up, trail hand down, point the toe the way you're going, and let's come back with Pat this way here. Turn it around. All right, we get power off the back foot. All right, let's stop right there. All right, now as we're coming here, and we want to take this stop, and Kirby switches direction with the dribble, we work with a good point in this step here to the next push point there. Instead of dropping the foot right back and exposing the basket area, Pat wants to point to the nearest spot that he thinks he can cut Kirby off. Now he takes him across. He'll drop his left and point it and push. Drop his right and point it and come back with it. All the time working to keep his head in the middle of his stance. So let's come out here and get into a good stance again. All right. And let's have one last look at it here. Coming away from here. Good. Little zigzag. Change those hands. Work those feet. And the elastic band should really stay fully stretched. We work for them to stretch that elastic band as much as they can. And this avoids the technique. If we could come down here, Kirby, and just one last example here. Let's look at what we see a lot of times with very weak defense of where the feet come and bang together. Show us the difference here. Bang the feet together like that. You oftentimes see players bring their feet together. Let's have another look at that. That's exactly what we don't want. When Pat is working with the elastic band, now let's try the elastic band again and have a look at that. Notice how he works the band to keep it stretched. Right? And he's coming back. That's great. He keeps that band stretched, and this prevents him from bringing his feet together. It also strengthens areas of his legs so that he can become a better defensive player. These elastic bands are great techniques. If coaches out there are interested in finding out where you can purchase them, there's a place in the United States, there's also a place in Montreal. They can contact me at my office. We've used them now for the last 6 years. They were shown to me by Vern Gambetta, who at one time was the strength coach of the Chicago Bulls. And I think they're one of the best defensive tools out there to increase the individual defensive skills of your team. This week on Tips on Technique, let's look at one of the fundamentals of team offense, running the fast break. And in many cases, a team fast break will culminate in what we call a 3-on-2 situation. 3 offensive players against 2 defensive players. This is a very traditional offensive system. You see it a lot of times happening in games naturally, but there's a lot of actual principles involved that make this a very successful in your team offense. Working with us today on defense, we have Steiner Kramer and Steve Newton in the black, and on offense in red, we have Pat Sherlock, Kirby Shep, and Chris Weber. So let's set them up with the red team with the ball, attacking in a fast break situation against the 2 defenders in black. Now Pat will play the middle position, and we're going to ask Chris Weber and Kirby Shep to run the outside lanes. This really demonstrates the first principle from there, is that the offensive team has to create spacing. It's very easy for the 2 defenders to guard the offensive players if they're close together. But now the offensive players have spread themselves across the floor in what we call the 3 lanes. 1 running the middle lane, and that's Pat with the ball, and 2 running the outside lanes, that's Chris and Kirby. Now, stop it there. Let's look at the second principle, besides spacing. All right, the second principle is that Pat has to attack the top of the defense. That means he has to make Steve Newton here in black play him. And this should create a natural opportunity underneath. With Kirby and Chris Weber cutting hard to the basket, we have a natural 2 offensive players versus 1 defensive player, which should give us an easy shot. Let's look at that. All right, again, we've got good floor spacing. We bring the ball down the middle, and we commit the defense to us. A natural 2-on-1 underneath should develop, and now we have an opportunity. All right, let's have another look at it, maybe a little quicker speed. Again, good spacing on offense, bring the ball down, commit the defense to you, and we get an opportunity. All right, the keys here now, again, the third principle, after we've looked at good spacing from our offensive team, having the offensive dribbler commit the defense to them, make the dribbler play them, is now Chris and Kirby have to move to create a passing angle. Now, an example of that is Steiner may commit to this side here, and there may not be a good passing angle, but Kirby has to move to a spot to get that angle. All right, and sometimes it's a little bit back. You never know what's going to happen. For example, Steve may just fake and drop back, and then Chris Weber would have to find a little angle. And that means he's got to work to find an angle and make the pass to a side rather than through the defensive player. Let's have another look at that again. All right, we have good spacing. We attack the middle of the floor. We make Steve Newton play us on defense, and we create some good passing angles. All right, this time drop back quick, Steve, and let's see what we got. A good defensive team is not going to give up layups. They're playing for time. Now we get a good shot there or a little reversal. All right, that's excellent. Let's have another look at that. Both the defensive players are working for time. Their teammates are coming back. All right, it's blocked, and we may get a shot from that spot. In most cases, there are only going to be 2 possibilities for passes. Time is of the essence. The advantage that the offensive team has here is only going to be for probably 2 to 3 seconds. And so they're working to get a good shot. If it's not there, then they'll play 5-on-5 basketball. Here we go again. All right. Maybe we get a shot from that spot now. There's a good play, a good opportunity, and that's a shot that really you have to work with because that's often going to be there against a good team. Let's set that one again. The defenders cover the wings. It leaves the point open. Pat is ready to shoot it. His hands are up. He's shot ready, and we knock it down. Now, this is just one element of fast break play, and players really have to work with those concepts over and over again. One of the exciting things about basketball is the decisions that are made by the offensive team, in this case a 3-on-2 situation, are made in really split seconds. They only have moments to process and decide what they're going to do, and that's what's exciting about basketball. The decision making that's necessary separates it from other sports and really makes it the great game that it is. And give your players opportunities to make many decisions in practice. They're only going to get better at it. Here at courtside of the Duckworth Center on this week's Tips on Technique, we're going to look at how to defend dribble penetration. And we're going to look at it from an especially difficult situation where the defense is actually helping on the strong side and the ball is reversed. Working with us today on offense in red is Clarence Vigilance. On defense in black, Pat Sherlock. Also on defense in black, Kevin Chief. Let's first of all look at this situation of where we're going to ask the defender, Pat Sherlock in this case, to start in the middle of the key, and we're going to simulate as if the ball has been reversed from the ball side over there to Clarence here. And Pat has responsibility of dealing with Clarence as the defensive player. So we're going to first of all ask for the ball to be pitched out and look at the first skill called a closeout. So let's bring the ball back here with Pat and ask him to throw the ball to Clarence and move out now to defend him. The difficulty is now, as you move out, you're very vulnerable to dribble penetration. Because your weight is going this way, your momentum is going this way, Clarence can take the ball very easily to the basket. So we look at the first skill that's necessary called a closeout. We're going to ask Pat to more or less determine where half the distance is between him and the offensive player Clarence. We're going to ask him to run half that distance and then advance step, pushing off his back foot with high hands to deal with any potential shot. So let's take it back here and have the ball pitched and look at a closeout. All right, slowly. All right, run and move out high. All right, and now let's have a look and break it down again. One more pitch and have another look at it. Really nice and slow. The ball is pitched out. We run half the distance, and now we go into an advance step. Our hands are high, and we work with the inside hand, the hand that challenges the shot, to make sure that the only alternative that Clarence has is to put the ball on the floor. This is the first responsibility for the defender, is that he must make the defender or the offensive player put the ball on the floor. Now we've dealt with that shot. Clarence hasn't got the opportunity to shoot it. We look where we need to play defense now, that if he does penetrate, it is to the baseline side, to the outside. And that's a key in all of our defense, that we want to force any dribbler to the outside of the floor. The simplest reason is we want to use the baseline or the sideline as a defensive teammate. So if we move them down into here, we've got opportunities to force him out of bounds, and the out of bounds line becomes a defensive teammate. Secondly, when we take him outside, he only has one passing angle. He can only pass the ball inside. Going the other way, obviously, is out of bounds. So we've cut his game down 50%. Now let's look at the position that Pat takes here. He's going to have, first of all, in order to get the penetration that way, his nose is going to be on Clarence's left shoulder. So he's overplaying him about a half a man. Pat's nose is on Clarence's inside shoulder. All right, secondly, his right hand is up, and he will trace the ball with this hand. As Clarence moves the ball, he will keep pressure on the ball, and that's simply called tracing the ball. Thirdly, his feet will be in a heel-toe position so that his right foot is forward, his left foot is back, and we're looking at, let's turn this foot back straight around, a line that we can draw from this toe to this heel, simply called a heel-toe relationship. And fourthly, this hand here stays stationary to prevent a direct line pass into the post. If Clarence decides to throw it into the post, it's going to go bounce pass, it's going to go lob pass. They are much slower passes, gives our bigger people a chance to maybe knock it away. So let's start and get that position again. Start with the closeout, and let's see if we get good defensive pressure, forcing to the outside. Good. All right, coming back again. Let's have another look at it. In this case, we're asking Clarence to only go baseline. Let's hold the dribble and get set, and then look what happens with the drive after that. All right, we got pressure on the ball. Coming back over here, let's start again with the drive, and let's see what Pat does when Clarence puts the ball on the floor. All right, here we are again. Pressure on the ball, trace, trace, trace. This hand in the passing lane. Nose is on the inside shoulder, his left shoulder. His nose is chest height, which indicates how much he has to bend his knees. Now Clarence is forced to the baseline, right? We push, push, push off of that. Let's come back out here again and look at Pat's feet and see the position, really slow, that he takes. Here we are here. The power for his first defensive step is going to come from his right foot. And he's going to point the left foot, the toe, the way he's going to go. And we like to take them down to what we call a push point, right here at the edge of the international key in the baseline. So Pat's toe is going to point to that spot, and that's exactly where he wants to take Clarence. So now with this good push, drop the high hand underneath, keep the hand here, the left hand in the passing lane. If there's a crossover, we might have a chance to steal it with this drag hand, and we go 3 hard pushes to the push point. Let's look at it. Here we go. Push, push, push. Good. All right, Kevin, let's have a chance to look at you. Clarence is back here. Same thing, pitch, and we'll go live. Close out. Good defensive pressure. Working on it. Push, push, push. Good. All right, Pat, we're ready to go. All right, rotate every time. All right, push, push, push. That's good. Now, that was a good example of why we use the baseline, because you can see the offensive player was forced out of bounds. So the baseline becomes a defensive teammate. All right, no shot this time. Let's look at some technique here. All right. Ball, push, push, push. Good job. Here we go. Back again. Let's go have a look at Pat. Close out. Force baseline. You see here, if we got a good chance to look at that one again, and this is something that Pat's working with. If you looked at that, he actually tried to go for the steal. His weight came forward. Let's come out here and have a look at that, and he got beat to the inside. All right, the ball went down on the floor, and Clarence is very smart. He says, I don't have to go that way all the time, so he decided to go to the inside, and Pat got caught reaching. His weight came forward, and he got beaten. Let's try that again, Pat. Now he's going to go either way. Pitch it again. And here's a good live situation. All right, now we're ready. Push, 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 push. I got a piece of it, but there's a good example of how you have to keep your balance. The balance is lost. Again, you're in trouble. Let's go, Kevin. Your shot at it. Push, 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 push. All right, good job. All right, excellent. When we look at this, and you can see when people put the ball on the floor, there's a lot more to it than actually just hoping that they go one way. There's actually forcing skills involved, and very religious technique in terms of hand position, your nose position, your knees, which way you point your toes. All of that is drilled and drilled and drilled until we can deal with the way that a person puts the ball on the floor against us. This week on Tips on Technique, we're going to look at a very, very common offensive strategy, setting a back screen on a wing. You can look at many of the offenses you find today, and you'll see this type of thing occur. Working with us today on offense in black is Pat Sherlock and Steve Newton. On defense in red is Clarence Vigilance and Kirby Shep. And what you oftentimes see, the offensive player here, Pat Sherlock, pass the ball back to the point. And now a back screen is set on Pat's man by Steve, and we're asking Pat to go hard to the basket. This is a very common offensive strategy that you see. Let's break it down now and look how this back screen is run correctly. Again, we'll start with the ball in the wing here. Pat is looking to pass the ball into the post. There isn't that opportunity. He passes the ball back out to the point, and now we run what is called a back screen. The key principle here is that when Pat lets the ball go, he now sets the screen up by jabbing into his man. Clarence has jumped to the ball and he's on the high side. So the setup now is a jab into Clarence. If he was low, let's move this side here, Pat would set up with his right foot low to set the screen up. And the way the screen is set up gives Steve, the offensive post here, the read as to how he would set the screen. Now again, let's go back and have Clarence up high. All right, the ball is reversed. Clarence jumps to the ball, and Pat sets the screen up. And on the high side, and Steve, his read is he screens opposite the setup. So again, the jab is to the inside of the court, and that allows Steve then to set the screen away from the setup. And Pat is going hard to the basket. All right, and we get the layup off of this. You'll see a lot of teams run this type of play to get the famous alley-oop dunk. I don't know if that's what we're going to see today, but this back screen will give them the opportunity to throw the ball up at the rim, catch it, and dunk it down. And this is the most common, one of the most exciting highlight sections you see on many of the videotapes out there today. So let's have a look at it and look for that setup opposite the, we'll look for the setup into the defensive man and the screen opposite the setup. Here we go. And we have that good pass inside and the good catch. Let's have another look at it. We may not have to catch it in the air. Maybe we can catch it and actually do a layup. Because whether you dunk it or whether you lay it off the glass, it's only worth 2. Here we go. All right, jab into the man, screen opposite, and get it set. That's a great offensive play. Now, the second one that can happen is that Steve Newton can receive the ball off of this. If both of the defensive players go with the cutter to the basket, it may get the man setting the screen open, right? And we go there for a shot. And that's a common play that you get for a three-pointer. Now, thirdly, let's look if our defense now decides that they're going to slide the screen. We may get Pat flaring to the corner and get a pass over the top for a shot from him. And he flares to the corner, and we get it there. So really, the whole structure of a back screen from the post position to the wing position gives you 3 options. The straight layup, the option of getting the man setting the screen, and he can get a shot, or the flare to the corner that will get the original player a shot deep in the corner. Let's have a look at it live.
What's screen coming?
All right, let's see if we can get a layup, which is the high percentage shot. Most cases, if we run it hard for the layup, we're going to get that opportunity, put some pressure on the defense. There's a great play inside. A great opportunity to score, lots of good screening, usually a bigger player setting on a smaller player, and it creates lots of problems for the defense. So next time you're watching the game of basketball, maybe you can look for this back screen from the post to the wing, and you'll understand how it's actually set up. This week on Tips on Technique at the Duckworth Center, we're going to look at how to deny the pass in the wing. Many defenses try to prevent a pass going from the point position to a wing position. And this will stop many of the offenses from really getting untracked. Working with us today on offense is Kirby Shep in red, Steve Newton in red, and the defensive player Kevin Chief in black. Let's set it up now and see how we may deny this pass going from the point position to the wing position. If we take away this pass, it's doubtful whether you can get any kind of offense initiated. This is one of the keys. Another key is here, any pass that takes the ball closer to the basket, we really want to pressure that pass and deny the pass from being made. Unless Steve wants to step way out here, well past the three-point line, then we may give him the pass. But not allow him to receive a pass from one step just outside the three-point line all the way into the basket. So let's get Kevin in a position now where he will try to deny this pass. Let's look at the principles involved. First of all, as we talked about in many of our defensive presentations already, we want his nose to be at chest level. And that's an indication of how much he has to bend his knees. Secondly, he's in what we call a closed stance. That means his back is more or less to the basket, right? And he is playing with, again, a good heel-toe positioning, and his hand, right, is in the passing lane with his thumb down so that the surface area of the palm can potentially knock the ball away. And thirdly, his ear is on Steve's chest, right? That means that this ear here will stay on his chest so that he has a chance to watch through peripheral vision both the ball in Kirby's hands and his defensive matchup, Steve. Fourth point is that he keeps a bar arm here so that Steve can't get to his legs and potentially go over the top. So with that 4 pieces of technique, let's see if Kevin could deny the pass coming in from Kirby to Steve. Great positioning, and he deflects it away. Hold right there. You can see this is good strategy because we have given Steve the ball, and he is well beyond the three-point range. I don't think he can even shoot a good percentage shot from there, and that's good defense. Now, secondly, let's set it up. As Steve was moving to the basket now, what does Kevin do in order to deal with the cut that goes to the basket? And we watch slowly here. Notice how he switches his heads, he switches his hands, so now again, his thumb is down, and he still has ear on chest so that peripherally he can see both Kirby and Steve. Let's have a look at that good basket cut there and how he deals with that. A good head switch, and he's working hard. Push off the outside foot, he gets good thrust and knocks it away again. Great. So that's really a key in good defense. If you could prevent this pass and only give it maybe 3 or 4 feet behind the three-point line, you can really take many teams out of their offenses. This week on Tips on Technique at the Duckworth Center, we're going to look at a man-to-man full-court press involving 2 ways of putting pressure and hopefully getting the ball back from the offensive team. One is looking at trapping, and the other is looking at jumping. And we'll explain the difference between a trap and a jump. The rules are quite simple. What we like to do, and we use the edges of the volleyball court, and they're on all the courts out there in Manitoba that I know, that's really our guidelines. So the lane that's created with the edge of the volleyball court to the sideline of the basketball court, in this area we're going to trap or double team the ball. Any area in between, from one side of the volleyball to this side of the volleyball, we're going to jump, and you'll see what that is. And on the far side again, between the volleyball court and the sideline of the basketball court, we're going to double team or trap the ball. Working with us this time on offense, we have Kirby Shep in red and Steve Newton in red. On defense in black, we have Kevin Chief, Pat Sherlock, and Clarence Vigilance. The defensive players are putting full court man pressure. They want the ball back. They want to disrupt tempo. They want to create a lot of problems for the team in red. Red has just allowed black to score. Black is picking them up full court in a man-to-man press. And so you see Kevin matched against Kirby. You see here Pat matched against Steve. And we have Clarence, who's in the back, looking for an opportunity to steal the ball. Let's look at the first scenario of where Steve on offense, who catches the ball in the outside lane where we want to trap. All right, hold right there. Kevin, right? Kevin and Pat trap the first pass. They know that this area here is a trap area. Kevin calls the word trap, and that indicates for Pat to stay. And they double team the ball, right angles, right? Not fouling, hands together in a dead situation, right? And putting great pressure on the ball. No contact, no attempt to steal the ball. And Clarence, the next defensive player down, looks to steal the pass that Steve is probably going to make back to the open man Kirby. Let's have another look at that again. All right, Kevin uses his voice. We get the trap. The pass is back to the open man, and we get the steal. There, right? And we get the easy 2. Let's run that again. We call Clarence the gap shooter. And he looks for that opportunity to steal the ball from that open man. Right. Excellent, excellent. Now this time, right, we'll get Kevin to move to a side because Kirby clears quickly, and we'll have one-on-one pressure, and look at the difference when we get a jump. All right, here we go. Pass is made to Steve, right? There isn't an opportunity to trap. Right, and again the same technique occurs. All right, let's have a look at that. Notice how we have Kevin leaving his defensive man. Let's set that up again so our viewers can actually see it in slow motion. All right, give Steve the ball. All right, Kirby clears away. Now the dribble comes to the inside of the floor. This is a jump area. Jump, jump, jump. The key words here are jump, and it's a 3-step rule. Kevin will only go to the ball when it's within 3 steps of him. He pressures it. He jumps hard at the dribbler. Hopefully gets an opportunity for him, the dribbler, to pick up the dribble. And again, we leave the open man, and that's Kirby. Steve is tempted to make that pass, but Clarence, as the gap shooter, steps in front for the steal and the easy basket. All right, let's run that again live. Again, the penetration to the inside of the floor indicates that this is a jump. And we steal, and we lay it up for the easy basket. All right, here we go live. Let's play it. Here we go. Do we have a trap? Do we have a jump? We got to make some decisions. Here we go. And a little bit of an errant pass, and they get away with it. Here we go again. That gap shooter has to time his cut so he can make that steal. You oftentimes see this late in a game when a team is behind. This is the press they go to. All right. Good steal and the easy basket. Great. That's an example of how teams put pressure. A simple man-to-man press, trying to get the ball back for easy baskets, disrupt the offensive team, create problems, and maybe eventually win the game. Last week on Tips on Technique, we looked at full court man-to-man press, and one of the elements of the press was that we double team or trap the ball. This week, let's look at how to beat the trap. Working with us today on offense in black is Chris Chartier and Robert Penner, and on defense, setting the trap in red, Murray Davidson and Steiner Kramer. Well, let's look at a situation now in a drill where we're going to pass the ball from Robert to Chris and form the trap on Chris and see what are the principles that he can use to beat the double team. Let's have that pass come across. Now, the first thing we see just before the trap sets is that we want Chris to step forward and receive the pass. That means he steps into the pass. Let's have another look at that again. Instead of standing with his feet parallel, he steps to receive the pass. Here's the pass coming, and he steps to receive it. Now, as the trap forms, his first move to deal with the trap is to pivot out of pressure. And you can see here with his back foot, he pivots back and creates some space. So now he has an area to work in. Rather than be double teamed and have the pressure right up against his body, he pivots out of pressure. Let's look at that again. All right, the pass comes across. He steps to receive it and pivots out of pressure. That's the first principle. Now, with the hands high, the trap obviously is a very imposing figure. We have Steiner at 6'10 and Murray at 6'8. This is a really tough double team. The second principle that Chris needs to deal with is to take the ball down. And 9 out of 10 times, the hands will come down, and it's a lot easier to pass the ball over the top. So what we talk about, principle number 2, take the trap down. Now let's put 1 and 2 together again. All right, pass comes across from Robert. Let the double team form. Here we go. Pivot out of pressure. Take the trap down. And as he takes the ball down, now the hands come down. And he has an area to pass up over top. Now, as the areas for passing open up, we want to include the third principle, which is to fake the pass. These pass fakes are going to get hands moving, and now he's going to be able to throw it into the gaps. The kind of passes we want him to use would be a hook pass to the side, like that. Good. Back over the top again. A curl pass over the top. That's good. All right. And thirdly, come back again. If the press with the curl gets, or the trap gets really tight, the opportunity to step through it and make the pass there. Good. All of those should be done in combination with a series of pass fakes. So let's put it all together right now and look at the principles that Chris is going to use to defeat the trap. All right, here we go. Pass comes across, pivot out of pressure, take the trap down, look for his opportunity, a good hook pass. Now, form the trap on Robert, take the trap down, and a little curl over the top. Wait for it to form, pivot out of pressure, take the trap down. Right, here we go, look at it. He's got 5 seconds to move the ball before a violation is called. This is a good drill. Robert, a good step through there. Good receiving of the ball, take it down, and over the top with a little hook pass. Much tougher than the actual game, because here they have to throw the ball through the trap. In a game, hopefully you could throw the ball to the sides to an open man rather than over the top. But again, in practice, you want to make the drills tougher than a real game. Great. So there's some good examples of how to deal with the press, not only when they come and they trap you, but what you can do. Rather than turn the ball over, commit the 5-second violation, you can work with a whole series of skills that enable you to defeat the trap and actually defeat the press, move the ball down the floor, and score. And so just as we saw, there's a way to press, get the ball back, there's also a way to defeat it. On this week's Tips on Technique, let's look at the relationship between the ball and where people play defense. Working with us on offense today in red is Steve Newton, Kirby Shep, Murray Davidson, and Steiner Kramer. The defensive team in black includes Pat Sherlock, Robert Penner, Chris Chartier, and Chris Pasley. Now the idea being here is we've got it set. You'll see we only are using 4 players, and that's so we can really check on the defensive positions. We'll start with the ball here in the point. Now, defensively, let's look at the relationship between when the ball is in this spot to where each of the defensive people will play. Pat Sherlock will work forcing with good individual defense on the ball, working to get Steve to go to his left. His nose will be on this shoulder here. He's got a good heel-toe relationship. This foot high, this foot back. He pressures the ball with a trace on the ball here, and he works to keep his knees bent so that his nose is at chest level. On this side, when the ball is at the point, Robert now denies the pass. His ear is on Kirby's chest. He's working with his thumb down in the lane, a bar arm so Kirby doesn't get to his legs, and he works to make that pass tough. On the other side, we see exactly the same. Chris Pasley working against Murray Davidson, same situation, trying to deny the pass. Chris Chartier in the post area here works with the same principles. So what we're doing here is that any penetrating pass, any pass by the red team that takes the ball to the wings or to the post is being denied. So let's have a look at that. Everybody in position, and we're working hard there. Now obviously the ball may come into a wing spot. So let's make the pass here from Steve to Kirby, and now we adjust our positions. Now Robert has the force, and he's working to keep Kirby to the outside. That only gives him one passing angle. He again works with his nose on Kirby's left shoulder. It's about chest height. This hand traces the ball as Kirby moves it around. His feet are in a good heel-toe position. This toe equal that heel. His heels are moving, so he's ready to move, and he's working to pressure the ball. Pat Sherlock has jumped to the ball and now works with this hand in the lane to really discourage the pass back, but he's in an open stance to really make the drive to the inside impossible. Chris Chartier, he is in a full front now. Exactly here. Anytime the ball drops below the foul line extended, a full front position, denying completely the pass into the post. And to help with the lob pass, Chris Pasley is in behind, listening to Chris's call. Right? If the pass comes over the top, we have that picked off. All right, ball comes back to the top. Good job, Chris. Let's take it back to the top. All right, that's good. Back to the denial. Let's go to this one, to Kirby on this side. Everybody adjust their position. Good. Hold it right there. That's right. Notice how Chris Pasley now occupies a spot that's midway through the key. This becomes the help side of the defense. This is your ball side here, and from the middle of the key, basket to the foul line, now Chris occupies a spot where he can provide support, helping on lob passes, helping on drives. And now we adjust our positions. Now if the ball is turned around to the other side, back to the point, back to a denial, now into the wing. Now we adjust our spots again. Hold it there. You can see Chris puts pressure on the ball. Pat again, his backhand in the lane. Open stance completely to help on the inside drive. Chris is forcing baseline. Pressures the ball. A good heel toe. His feet are ready. Nose is on the inside shoulder. Nose is about chest height. All right, because the post is now away from the ball, both here occupy their spots. Chris and Robert, middle of the key, an open stance. We call this pistols. They're pointing. There's the ball. There's the man I'm guarding. And they're ready to not only deal with cutters from this side, but to provide support if Murray were to drive baseline. All right, let's go again. All right, let's move the ball a couple times and look at the complete picture. Watch how each player adjusts his position according to where the ball is located on the floor. Let's not drive it. Let's just pass the ball. Here we go. All right, adjust position. Good. Back to the other wing. Good. All right, a good drill so that every time, and we've actually forced the offense to stay in a stationary position. Keep it moving. All right, every time the ball is passed, you adjust your positions. And now defense becomes a team thing. Not only are we concerned about the individual and what he does on the person with the ball or without the ball, we now have a beginnings of a team defense. A couple more times. Move it here. All right, keep it going there. Good job. Keep it going, and I'll just move out here. That's good. All right, the key element that we're talking about here is that we're now trying to build a team defense. We're working in relation to the ball. Each person has a specific responsibility. And coupling that with good individual defense, you can have the beginnings of a great team defense. This week at the Duckworth Center on Tips on Technique, let's look at the basics of a defensive rotation. In one of our previous episodes, we looked at the relationship between the ball and where you play defense. Now we'll build that team defense even one step further and look at the basic elements of rotation. Working with us today on defense is Steiner Kramer, Steve Newton, and assistant coach Grant Richter in black. On offense in red, we have Pat Sherlock and Chris Weber. Now let's set it up here first of all in the wing, and if you remember from one of our previous episodes, here we have the ball in the wing position, Pat Sherlock in red. We are going to force him to the outside, and this is done by getting a good heel-toe position, in this case our right foot in front of our left, and we're working with our right hand up to trace the ball, and we're working to get our nose on the outside shoulder of the offensive player, in this case Pat Sherlock's left shoulder. So we have played him about a half a man to the middle, and with this high step here and the proper heel toe, this toe equal this heel, we are influencing or forcing him to the baseline. So now the only choice that the offensive player has, if he puts it on the floor with the dribble, is to take the ball to the baseline. All right, be that as it may, let's get set. Assistant Coach Richter here, while he works against the ball, his objective is now to try to block the dribbler here at the edge of the international key and the baseline and cut him off in that position. So let's have another quick look at that. Using that overplay stance, right? A good push with the right, point the toe the way you're going, and shut him down. Exactly, good technique. But this may not always work, and the dribbler may get past the defender here. If that happens, we're into what is called defensive rotation. And we're going to ask Steiner here, who's in an open stance, pistols, pointing out the ball over there, and pointing out the man that he has to guard, Chris Weber here in red, will now rotate to the ball, picking up the open penetration and stopping it outside the paint. He goes outside the paint and goes to that ball and stops it. The key word here is the word jump. When he uses the word jump, that means we're into rotation, simply meaning he has picked up Pat Sherlock and he is asking for the support of his defensive teammates, assistant coach Richter, Steve Newton, to pick up the open man, Chris Weber. So let's walk that through and have a look at it. In this case, the offensive dribbler, Pat, is going to get the free lane to the basket and not be stopped. So slowly walk it through here with the dribble, taking it down. Steiner goes to it. Great. A nice loud jump. He stops the penetration of the dribble right here. Obviously his man is open and Steve has dropped down. We call this simply rotate, down, and fill are the three principles here. All right, the rotation is Steiner. Steve is down, taking away the pass to Chris Weber. Assistant coach Richter is filling back into the lane to even help on that pass even more. All right, let's make that pass and have a look at it in its entirety. Here we go. And we get there and knock it away. Good, let's try it again. This time maybe we can catch it rather than sort of one-handed out of bounds. All right, both of us are in open stances. Here we go. And we get there, exactly. So what we've taken away, two things here. We've taken away the drive. We've taken it outside the key, hands up to prevent the easy shot. And the open man here on offense now is picked up by the defensive rotation. All right, let's play it live from this spot. Let's have another look at it. Here we go. And we got to get inside. That time we didn't get it done. Let's go again. All right, this rotation down that Steve has to make here, once Steiner steps to the ball, has got to be in the line between Pat Sherlock and his teammate Chris Weber. He has to get into the line. And assistant coach Richter also has to get into that line so that Chris Webber is only open for an instant. We close that passing lane down and either intercept the pass or deflect it out of bounds. Here we go. Live again. That's it. Good job. Let's go again. Now, Steiner, we're going to ask you to really go at that ball, and so that you meet it outside the paint. Don't let it come to you. You go to the ball. All right, let's have a look at it again. That's it. Good hands. Over the big man. Knock it away. Good job. So what we've done here, and let you guys go live in behind me here, what we've done here is take away a great possibility of scoring basket inside. They've taken the ball via the dribble penetration, put our defense in a bad position, and we have recovered with a very simple defensive rotation. Again, the principle that defense is very important individually, but once you have all your people working together, it becomes a solid team defense. This week on Tips on Technique at the Duckworth Center, we're going to continue our sections dealing with how to defeat solid man-to-man full-court pressure. And we're going to look at how to inbound the ball. This is one of those things I think that's neglected by a lot of teams because they work very hard about what happens after they get the ball inbounds and how they're going to attack the press, but they have trouble getting the ball inbounds. The scenario that we'll look in front of us, working with us today on offense, is Chris Webber in red, assistant coach Grant Richter in red, and Pat Sherlock in red. On defense, working with the press, is Steve Newton in black and Steiner Kramer in black. Now, what we're trying to develop here is the black team has just scored a basket, and they have decided to extend their defense to the full court. They want the ball back. Possibly they're behind in the score. Maybe the red team is not a good ball handling team. Maybe the red team really is not great in terms of handling pressure. So black team has decided to come out and put the pressure. And so we see here a very common pressure situation with Steiner Kramer up here making the inbounds pass after the basket very difficult. Chris Webber in red has to make the pass from out of bounds onto the court to again get play going. And this has occurred after the black team has scored. Now, what are the ideas in here? How will Chris be able to make this pass against this formidable defensive target here, 6'10" Steiner Kramer, who obviously is going to wave his arms and make it very difficult? The rules are simple. Chris has 5 seconds to inbound the ball. That means by the time he picks it up and he's ready to throw it in, to the time it leaves his hands, that must be done within the 5 seconds. Plus, sometimes he's able to run this line, and sometimes he has to stand still. The rules are simple. If it's after a basket, he can move. If it's after a free throw, he can move. If it's after a violation, example, a travel ball, he must stand in one spot. Now, another point that's very important in terms of where he starts. Step way back away from the defensive player. There's no purpose in standing up here and making that pass tougher. You can step back, and now you've got some space to work it. Another point is that we do not want to inbound the ball from under the basket here, because you see this more times, especially big plays, the ball is thrown there, off the top of the board. So we want to inbound the ball from the edge of the key to the sideline here, and the same on that side. All right, so we step back away. We know exactly, we ask the referee, can we move or can we run? And we know that we have 5 seconds to get the ball in bounds. If we have trouble getting in bounds, Chris should also know how many timeouts his team has, because he can turn to the referee and ask for timeout. And he knows, the coaches have let him know, that we have 2 timeouts remaining. And he knows that he can only get a timeout if he verbalizes the words timeout. No signals, no hands, no nothing. He has to say the words timeout. And with that as his arsenal, he's going to have no trouble getting the ball in bounds. Now, knowing that, we're going to let him run the end line here, because most of it is against after a basket has happened, and we're going to look at a simple skill of trying to get Steiner out of his line of vision. First of all, we're going to ask him to fake high with the pass, get Steiner's hands up, and then run the end line and improve the angle to get the pass in bounds. Correct. Now, let's set it up on the floor here now so that we have somebody to receive the pass. The best way to get open against pressure, and we're going to ask Pat Sherlock here to get open to receive the ball, because he's our best ball handler, is to set a screen. He's going to go across and set a good screen on Steve Newton, lock him in, and as assistant coach Richter comes off it, we're going to ask Pat to step to the ball and receive the inbounds pass. Let's have a look at it again. The key point here is to get yourself open. If you're a good ball handler and you're confident in your abilities to handle the ball against pressure, is to set a screen and then step to the ball off the screen. Now watch again. Pat Sherlock sets the screen, sets, and he steps to the ball and gets himself open. And we have two targets here. Let's run it again. This time let's get it to Pat. And again, remembering that Chris on the end line here is going to inbound the ball correctly. All of the skills associated with the rules. He's going to fake high and run to his right, improving the passing angle and getting the ball inbounds to Pat. All right, let's have a look at it again. There's the screen. Good. Little run, and we turn and catch. We get the ball in the hands of our best ball handler, and we have a good chance of being able to defeat the press. All right, let's go again. Run it again. Same situation again. All right, stepping away from the end line, fake up high, get the defender's hands up high, make that entry, and we go from there. Now, run it a couple of times in behind me. That's good. Those are some key points there, and many times points that are overlooked, because the pressure not only is going to be physically tough, but psychologically tough. If you've got a good repertoire of skills to be able to deal with it, and your players can keep their composure, always thinking, what do I have in terms of timeouts? What are the rules telling me? What skills are necessary to defeat the press? You can do a good job and defeat the press and get down the other end and maybe score against it. So again, another series in our sections on tips on technique of how to deal with man-to-man full court pressure. It's not as formidable as it seems. There are obviously ways to defeat it very easily.